Korean shaman Hwa Rim and her protege Bong-gil are asked to meet a wealthy Korean family, the Parks, about a prospective job. The pair visits a hospital to meet the family's newborn son. Despite the intervention of many medical professionals, no one can recognize the reason behind his illness. So, Hwa Rim gets assigned to figure it out using her expertise. Hwa Rim believes in elements that are not visible or tangible. She considers a yin and yang connection between science and superstition. With Bong-gil, she meets Park Ji-yong in the US. Ji-yong reveals that the firstborn in his family has always suffered. His father is paralyzed and his brother took his life in a mental hospital. He believes that a vengeful spirit haunted his brother. Later, it came for him and is now after his child. Hwa Rim recognizes his curse as the grave calling because an ancestor's, specifically his grandfather's spirit, is feeling uncomfortable. As a solution, Ji-yong asks them to relocate the grave of his grandfather. Hwa Rim enlists Kim Sang-deok and Yong-gun for this work. Sang-deok is a feng shui master who sells burial lands to the wealthiest bunch. On the other hand, Yong-gun is a mortician who owns a funeral home. Hwa Rim meets this pair and tells them about Ji-yong. Over 100 years after his grandfather's death, Ji-yong wants his grave to be dug up from a remote mountain near the North Korean border. Sang-deok and Yong-gun decide to help, also considering the hefty compensation. Since his daughter is getting married, Sang-deok sees it as an added benefit. During his first meeting with Sang-deok and Yong-gun, Ji-yong tells them to keep their conversation confidential and to get the grave cremated after excavation. Although his parents and other relatives are against it, Ji-yong wants to proceed with it. Yong-gun believes that they should check the remains and purify them before any further procedure. On the tombstone, Sang-deok notices some digits. He wonders why Ji-yong's grandfather chose an odd location on a mountaintop. Ji-yong tells him that a famous monk named Gisune recommended it as the grave location. Ji-yong says that his grandfather's tomb is fairly simple because grave robberies were pretty common. Sang-deok senses an ominous, destructive energy around this land. Later, Ji-yong tells him that his wife had a couple of miscarriages. Sang-deok asks him about the digits engraved on the tombstone. Ji-yong doesn't know what they represent. While Sang-deok is about to back out, Hwa Rim convinces him that she will perform rituals to avoid the curse while the grave is being moved. The next day, she and Bong-gil prepare to perform a ritual called axe turning that involves 5 pigs and 5 workers born in the same year. It aims to distract the evil and help with the excavation. Meanwhile, Ji-yong is surprised to see his elderly aunt, who has come to witness the exhumation of her father's grave. As the digging begins, Bong-gil chants, and Hwa Rim performs an unsettling dance. The pigs are sacrificed and the workers eventually uncover the coffin. When all seem to be going well, one of the workers discovers a strange, human-headed snake. He swiftly decapitates it with a shovel, and the creature screams like a human. Suddenly, a storm breaks out, and heavy rain begins to pour. Sang-deok informs Ji-yong that the cremation must be postponed for the day, and Ji-yong agrees. The coffin is then taken to Yong-gun's funeral home for safekeeping overnight. Later, Sang-deok visits a village near the mountain and speaks with a monk. He asks about Gisune, but the monk claims not to know anyone by that name. When Sang-deok inquires about the tomb, the monk reveals that it was rumored to be filled with treasure, which attracted grave robbers. The monk also shows Sang-deok some artifacts left behind by the robbers, which are still kept in the temple. At the funeral home, a curious caretaker opens the coffin. The shamans catch him in the act, but it's too late. The grandfather's spirit escapes. Hwa Rim feels the spirit pass through her and faints. The next scene shows Ji-yong's disabled father in Los Angeles. He suddenly hears his father's voice, instructing him to open the window. The old man complies, and the spirit's reflection appears in the glass. The spirit then extracts his liver and kills him. Meanwhile, Ji-young's mother, who is dancing while watching TV, is also attacked and killed by the spirit. Back in Korea, Hwa-rim performs a ritual to summon the grandfather's spirit into Bong-gil's body. She hopes to understand the spirit's intentions and why it is wreaking havoc. The ritual works, and Bong-gil becomes possessed, ominously declaring that he will only leave once he has claimed all his descendants. He is furious at his family for neglecting him over the years. Meanwhile, Ji-young receives a call from Sang-deok, who explains that his grandfather's spirit is out for vengeance, intending to destroy his bloodline. At that moment, there's a knock at Ji-young's door, and the man claiming to be Sang-deok asks to come in. Ji-young is confused, but the voice on the phone warns him not to open the door. Instead, he is told to open the window, as the grandfather's spirit will protect him. Unfortunately, Ji-young complies and allows the spirit to enter. Shortly after, the real Sang-deok bursts into the room with the help of the hotel staff. He finds that Ji-young is already possessed and drinking water bottles uncontrollably. He also starts speaking in Japanese, despite never learning the language. Alarmed, Sang-deok quickly calls for an ambulance. But by the time they arrive, the possessed Ji-young snaps his own neck and dies. With no other options, the shamans decide to cremate the grave before the spirit can cause more destruction. Meanwhile, in the US, the spirit reaches Ji-young's baby and is on the verge of harming him. Sang-deok calls Ji-young's aunt and asks for permission to cremate her father immediately. He stresses that it is the only way to stop the killing spree. Initially hesitant, the woman eventually agrees. The group successfully cremates the grandfather's remains, along with the coffin. At the same time, the spirit near the baby screams in agony before vanishing completely. After eliminating the vengeful spirit, the group resumes their regular lives, and everything seems to return to normal. The baby in the US also starts showing signs of recovery. A while later, Sang-deok receives a call from one of the workers who had severed the strange snake's head. It turns out that since the incident, he has fallen gravely ill and is constantly haunted. When Sang-deok meets him, the worker is in awful condition. He regrets his actions and begs Sang-deok to return to the site and give the snake a proper burial. In the following scene, Sang-deok revisits the burial site and begins digging. He eventually discovers the snake. Even more shocking, he uncovers another coffin beneath the snake. This coffin is large and in an upright position. Terrified, Sang-deok quickly calls the rest of the group to the mountaintop. When they arrive, they are shocked to see the enormous coffin wrapped in thick chains. With great effort, they manage to remove it from the site and plan to cremate it. However, since it is already dark, they must wait until morning. The group decides to spend the night at the local monk's place, who Sang-deok had met a few days earlier. Sometime later, they meet with Ji-young's aunt and inquire about the second coffin. The woman claims she has no knowledge of it and urges them to do whatever they wish with it. By now, Sang-deok has deduced that the grandfather was a traitor who betrayed his country during the Japanese-Korean War. He was then rewarded by the Japanese and became very wealthy. Sang-deok speculates that this is why the man was punished and buried in such a sinister place. However, the aunt reveals that the monk, Gisune, was Japanese. She doesn't understand why her father was buried in such a cursed place after being loyal to them. Later that night, while everyone is asleep, Bong-gil wakes up to strange noises and investigates. He notices that dozens of pig livers have been removed from their bodies. In the distance, he sees a massive ghoul devouring the monk's body. Bong-gil quickly calls Hwa-rim, and the two rush to check on the coffin, only to find it empty. Moments later, a massive ghoul samurai approaches her and demands to know her identity. Hwa-rim speaks in Japanese and pretends to be a subordinate. He initially believes her and asks her to prepare sweet fish for him. However, the ghoul samurai quickly sees through her ruse and attacks her. The others arrive just in time, and Bong-gil bravely stabs the ghoul samurai, but it has little effect. The samurai retaliates and severely injures him. Just then, he hears the crowing of a rooster, signaling the approach of morning. This prompts the samurai to transform into a ball of fire and leave. Bong-gil is rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Because of the impact of the injuries on his spine, he is sent to a bigger hospital. The doctors ask if he was injured by a wild animal. It brings back some memories in Sang-deok's mind about a fox cutting a tiger's waist. This refers to an attack on the Korean peninsula by the Japanese people. They installed metal rods, aka the iron stake, in specific places in Korea to block the land energy and make them weaker. Later, Sang-deok returns to the monk's place alone to find the tools with names of supposed tomb raiders. He understands that the digits on Ji-yong's grandfather's grave are coordinates for the latitude and longitude of a place. He starts digging further to find the samurai dormant on these coordinates. Soon he realizes that the people in the recovered photo are not grave robbers, but Korean patriots. They were trying to bring out the Japanese military conquest's relic, meaning the rods. In Korea, meanwhile, Hwa-rim tries to find the ghoul's origin through the possessed Bong-gil in the hospital. She seeks the help of two women to get it. Hwa-rim figures that the spirit of a general is guarding the iron stake. With Sang-deok and Yong-gyun's assistance, she works out a plan to take the iron stake out. The three notice that the ghoul has not attacked Bong-gil in areas where Buddhist scriptures are inscribed on his body, so they decide to cover themselves in similar inscriptions. The following day, the three head to the mountain to implement their daring plan. Hwa-rim performs a ritual to lure the ghoul samurai out of the grave. She uses sweet fish because that was the samurai's request when she first encountered him. Once the ghoul samurai emerges, Sang-deok and Yong-gun begin digging the grave in search of the iron stake. However, even after hours of hard work, they cannot find anything. During this process, Hwa-rim sees a vision involving the ghoul samurai. Suddenly, it turns into a ball of fire and flies into the sky and toward the grave site, where Sang-deok is still searching for the iron stake. The ghoul samurai immediately attacks Sang-deok, injuring him severely. The ghoul then prepares to take Sang-deok's liver, but the others throw a bucket of horse blood on him, causing the ghoul samurai to scream in pain. Through a vision, they all learn that the monk Gisune embedded a katana, which is a Japanese sword, inside a beheaded samurai's body. He put the sword into a grave and put it upside down on the site of Ji-yong's grandfather's grave. Moments later, Sang-deok picks up a wooden stick, inserts it between the ghoul samurai's feet, and smears his blood on it. He then swings the stick towards the samurai and strikes him. Eventually, Sang-deok is able to slay the ghoul samurai. Right after, he faints. The two women in Bong-gil's room use a chicken as a sacrifice to save Bong-gil from the ghoul samurai's control. An injured Sang-deok is rushed to the hospital. He narrates that he is likely to die soon, but he doesn't mind because he has been surrounded by death all his life, and now it's just his turn. We see the others crying and praying for his recovery in the hospital, and fortunately, Sang-deok lives. Sometime later, after Sang-deok makes a full recovery, we see him attending his daughter's wedding along with his colleagues. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on the next one. Fear awaits you.